Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I am reviewing an eyeshadow palette that I'm extremely excited for. This is the Lust for Dusk palette from ColourPop. And hopefully you can see why I'm so excited about this. This is a really beautiful, cool and warm tone palette. I think it offers just enough variety and I cannot wait to create two looks with you all today. If you're new here, hi, I'm Morgan, welcome in. I focus a lot of my content on conscious consumerism and cruelty-free beauty. So I'm very particular about what makeup products I buy and I want to make sure they fit in well with my collection. If that sounds interesting to you, I hope you'll subscribe before you go today. And now let's jump into the review. Okay, so as the title and my intro suggest, I'm gonna be doing two different looks today. I'll also be showing you swatches and just talking through the details of the product. So first thing to note is that this is a really nice soft touch matte exterior. The actual palette itself, so this is the palette, and the packaging it comes in are both that soft touch matte. They actually look identical, and on the back you do have all of the shade names here. The ingredients are listed on the back of the exterior box if you need that information, and then when you open it up there are also shade names next to each of the shadows themselves. It's a 16 shade palette and it retails for $24. Right now it is an Ulta exclusive. So this palette contains 9 mattes as well as one of their mattes with shimmer right here. And then it has 6 shimmers, and according to the Ulta website, none of them are glitters. So first things first, I'm gonna pop up 2 little snippets here of swatches of the whole palette. And just so you're aware how I do my swatches, I always start in the top left corner. I go across the rows, then I go down to the next row and go across the row. So left to right, top to bottom. And then first you are going to see a set of swatches in my studio lights, and then that same set of swatches in natural lighting. Before I started filming, I asked you all on Instagram, what do you want to see first, a cool tone look or a warm tone look with this palette? And my responses back were essentially 50-50. So I'm going to do one look on one eye and one on the other today. It's fine if I look crazy at the end of this. I don't have anywhere to go. I'm just gonna do some yard work with my husband today. So I think I'm gonna do a cool tone smoky eye on one side and a warmer tone, more everyday look on the other eye. Hopefully that'll give you all a good sense of the range of this palette. And before we jump in, I do just wanna point out one thing that I think is awesome about this palette for beginners. If you're not sure where to go with this, if this color story feels a little too overwhelming to you and you're not sure what to pair together, I think ColourPop has done a great job of creating mini quads within this 16 pan palette. So any of these like 4 corners, I think make a beautiful quad. So up here, you have a really nice neutral look. Down in this bottom corner, you would definitely get more of those like rusty terracotta colors. And you even could do this quad in the middle here. That's a perfect layout as well. And then the same is true for kind of the more cool tone side of the palette. So I just wanted to point that out. I think especially these 4 quads give you 4 very distinct looks. So if you're not sure where to go with this palette, I'd say start there. We're gonna ease our way in with the neutral everyday look first. And when I say neutral, I do mean that I'm gonna play in kind of these warmer, more terracotta shades in here. A lot of you were interested in those in particular. So first things first, I'm going into Wild Sky, just to kind of lay down a base and a transition shade. So you can probably see that's just like 1 shade darker than my skin tone. Honestly, in the full heat of summer, when my skin's a little tanner, I won't really be able to use this shade as anything in particular, but I thought I'd give it a shot. So with that same brush, I'm gonna go into Horizon. Again, getting into these like peachy terracotta shades here, but I'm still gonna try to keep it pretty light today. That's a really beautiful color. I'm gonna take a little of that and run it just underneath of my eyes all the way across. So I definitely could build that up or use a slightly denser brush to get a little more pigment out of that shade Horizon. But I want to leave it there because I want my crease to be nice and light and bright for this everyday look. And instead, I'm gonna go into the shade After Dark just to deepen up my outer corner and my lower lash line a little bit. That is a stunning shade, especially for the summer. It's like a perfect warm orangey peach terracotta shade. I love that color. I'm just gonna take that same brush that I used before with my crease color to kind of blend the edge a bit. So far, absolutely no trouble blending these mattes. They look gorgeous. They are pigmented when I put them on, but easy to sheer out and blend out if I've overdone it. Okay, so all over the lids, I think I'm gonna go in with the shade Quiet Storm. This looks really chunky. I actually thought it was gonna be a pressed glitter when I first opened the palette, but Ulta says it's not, so I believe them. I think this is gonna be so pretty with these terracotta shades. Oh my goodness, this is probably one of the prettiest eyeshadows I've worn in a really, really long time. That sparkle and shine is unbelievable. That feels like a very like high-end or like even indie brand shimmer. It's like very flaky, crumbly texture, but you can see I didn't get too much fallout. Now just to round things out, I'm going into Sun Chaser as an inner corner and brow bone highlight. Okay, so there is the first look. I love this. If this is still not quite like neutral enough for you for every day, you absolutely could instead use Hot Glam here. And again, basically this quad, right, that I was talking about earlier, that would be really neutral. The shade down here, That's Neat, is also like a standard matte brown. So of course you'll see this at the end with mascara as well. I won't do eyeliner on this side, but first I wanna do the shadow here and then I'll show you the completed looks with lips and mascara and all that. So on this side, I wanna use some of these more cool tones. First things first, I wanna see how Eventide looks on my skin tone. I will probably end up covering most of it up with these darker shades by the end, but because it is more of that cool toned pink in the palette, I think this is an approachable color, so I want to show you all what it looks like. So first I'm just going to go into my crease with Eventide. It's blending out along the edges to a really nice kind of neutrally pink shade, and it'll look great with both the warm tone and cool tone options in here, I think. I'm going to run a little of that under my lash line. Okay, and then I want to see what these smoky shades are made of. So I am going to go into Take the Lead and blend that in my crease as well. I tapped off quite a bit of that just because I want to have some control here. Oh, that's beautiful. Those mix so well that I'm confident about also putting some of Take the Lead under my eyes. So I'm just going to do that. Okay, and then I really want to use both Serve Chilled and Twilight. So Serve Chilled is like a dark, dark purple, and Twilight is like a dark gray blue. I think Twilight's a slightly lighter tone. So I'm gonna put Twilight on kind of the outer half of my lid, and then I'll probably use Serve Chilled just as like my very outer corner. So I'm gonna kind of pack on Twilight with just kind of this outer, the kind of flat portion of my blender brush here. That's pretty. I'm not usually one for strong blue eyeshadow, but this has like just enough gray in it that it's pretty flattering actually. And then I need just a slightly smaller brush because I'm gonna go into Serve Chilled, and I really want this like targeted on that very outer corner. This is like a dusty eggplant is what I would call this color. I think you can see the difference. The blue is in here, it's definitely more gray. You can see just that tiny extra bit of like warmth on this outer corner. I'm sure there'd be more differentiation if I weren't layering these, but right now it's just adding kind of an extra layer of depth. So we can try to see a little bit more of this Serve Chilled shade kind of alone. I'm gonna run it on my lower lash line. Yeah, I think that gives you a better sense of the shade. I'm gonna have to do some blending down there, but overall you can see it's definitely purple. Just taking that very first brush I used with the crease shades, and I'm just gonna blend around the edges. I am gonna lighten up the inside of my lids with some shimmers. I'm gonna try to use a few here because there are so many beautiful ones. I think I'm gonna try to use Night Lovers on my outer corner, kind of overlapping that blue and purple I put down. And then I can never resist a good taupey silver. So I am going to use Mood Lighting, I think, on the inner half and maybe my inner corner. So I'm gonna go ahead, do Night Lovers on this outer corner. I thought maybe we could see how this one performs with a brush. I'm not gonna wet it or anything. If it's not as impactful as I want, I'll just go in with my finger afterwards. Oh, no way. When I swatched this, it was way more beautiful, so we're switching gears. These are really interesting, like flaky, weird shades. I've never really felt anything like this from ColourPop before. I have from like smaller brands, like my shadows from Cindy Grace are kind of this texture. I think it's a step up from the shimmers that ColourPop has traditionally had. This is an all over shadow, just like a one and done would be stunning. And now going in with Mood Lighting. Again, it's super flaky. I hope you can see on the brush. Look how like flaky and chunky that is. This as an all over lid shade too would be absolutely stunning. This shade does have fallout with a brush, so you might want to either spray your brush or use some glitter glue or something like that. So there's look number 2. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna do my lips off camera, I'm gonna do mascara, and I'll probably do eyeliner on this smoky eye as well. I just wanna wrap up really quick here with some final thoughts on the quality and value of this palette, as well as whether or not I'd recommend it, and if I would, who do I think it would be best for? So in terms of quality, I would say that the mattes in this palette are what I typically expect from ColourPop. They're relatively pigmented. They're very blendable. I would say that the color you see in the pan is the color that shows up on your eyes. So I very much appreciate that. And that's kind of all what I typically expect from ColourPop. No surprises there. Nothing particularly spectacular about the mattes aside from the fact that they perform well. And I do think that the colors are especially well curated. The shimmers are really what threw me for a loop here. And I'll say that in the best way possible. They threw me for a loop, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised by them. Some of them are ColourPop's kind of standard shimmer shades. Like I would say the 2 lighter shades in the 2 top corners here are just kind of normal. Nothing crazy there, but you do get 2 very beautiful duochromes down on this 3rd row, and this extremely flaky shade, Quiet Storm. This is a stunning shade, and it really, really feels so much more expensive and indie brand-ish than the rest of the ColourPop shimmers that I've used in the past. This shade Shaken is a kind of a similar formula in terms of just feeling it on my fingers and swatching it. I'm not sure if it'll translate the same way on the eyes that this one does, with kind of like you can really see the big like shimmer particles in there. But just on first touch and swatches, that's kind of how that one feels as well. So I think the mattes are relatively average, but I think the shimmers really, really, really make this palette stand out. I think ColourPop might get a little bit of flack for this one, just because everyone is pretty critical of them in terms of just releasing neutral palette after neutral palette with like a couple pops of color. And like in theory, that is what this one is, right? It's relatively neutral, but I think you get so much variety in here that it really stands out to me in ColourPop's line. Of course, if you have all of these shades elsewhere in your collection, it doesn't always make sense to go out and buy a palette just because then they're all in one palette, right? But even as someone who has a lot of neutral eyeshadow, mauve eyeshadow, and peach eyeshadow, I still think the tones in here are very, very unique in my collection. I know that this will be a travel staple for me when I'm back to traveling, and that's because it gives me all of that versatility. So if you are on the market for something that's like one step beyond neutrals, but you're not really looking for like strong, bold pops of bright colors, I think this palette would be perfect for you. And I think that's the main demographic I would recommend it for. People who are wanting to take just a step outside of neutrals and have kind of a wide range of cool and warm tone, slightly colorful shades to play with, all in one palette. I would love to hear what you think of the 2 looks that I did today. Let me know in the comments below which one's your favorite. I hope you enjoyed this video today. I hope it was helpful for you to see this palette in action as well as to see those swatches. Please consider subscribing to my channel before you head out today if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.